I might have to just let my partner in, so I'll just put myself on mute and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah, mute and
Perfect.
video off. Oh, we are live on YouTube.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of our second annual match series here at Black Kids White Coats. I'm Nelson. I'm a first year intern. I'm going to radiology. I'm going to go ahead and introduce my co-host. Well, let her introduce herself.
Hey guys, I'm Lillian. Just matched this year to Med Peds. We'll probably talk about that later.
Awesome. So today, the topic is pediatrics. We have three three doctors now, three first year residents who just matched into peds. I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. How about we start with Chica?
Hey everyone, so I am Chica, that is my name. I did my undergrad at Xavier University of Louisiana, New Orleans, medical school at UNC, and matched to my home institution at UNC in the primary care track.
All right, Faith, you got it next.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Faith. I am going to be an intern at Yale New Haven Hospital. Super excited. I am a Connecticut native. I went to UConn or University of Connecticut for both undergrad and medical school. So I'm glad to be here.
All right, last but not least, David.
Hey everyone, my name is David. I'm from Prince George's County, Maryland, DMV area. I went to UNC Chapel Hill for undergrad, AUC, which is in the Caribbean, for medical school, and I'll be at Rutgers Health, Newark, Beth Israel, for my pediatrics residency.
Awesome. Again, welcome you all, and welcome to everyone else watching. Looking forward to a great discussion today, and looking forward to a lot of gems on the peds world. So congratulations to you all again for matching. I know it wasn't easy. Definitely was a tough year, and we'll get into that a bit more later as well. But first, let me just ask you all one question. One thing that's very important with all of our journeys is mentorship. So as we delve in here, just tell me about your experience with mentorship. What does mentorship mean to you? How did you find your mentors, and how's that been relevant in your journey so far? Anybody can start.
I'll lead off with this because I am super non-traditional. So luckily, like the people that I went to undergrad with, they went ahead of me in this whole like medical school becoming a physician process. And I had that network to kind of reach out to and get perspective on the next steps. So that was a little helpful. And then I'd say like while in medical school, especially mentors can come from just unexpected places. And I honestly feel like some of my strongest recommendations were not in pediatrics. There were people outside of pediatrics that just like saw my enthusiasm, saw my dedication, and was like, she's gonna make a great resident in whatever specialty, we're gonna help to get her there. And it just wasn't peds. So yeah, look for it in unsuspecting places for sure.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can add on to that. So I've always felt like mentoring, having a mentor and just being a mentor is like really key, just in life in general. And I think I stumbled upon my mentor or mentors through GroupMe. I think around this time last year, there was a bunch of UIM, underrepresented in medicine, GroupMe's going on. And I think because of that, one group that I'm now a part of is called Next Gen Peds or Next Gen Pediatrics. And we specifically try to mentor UIM medical students, specifically fourth year students who are applying, and just try to pair them up with a mentor. So for everyone who's listening and watching now, definitely try to connect with us via Next Gen Peds on Twitter, Instagram, things of that sort. And try to pair yourself up with a mentor who may have similar experiences with you or can kind of guide you through this process, especially if you don't have older siblings or family members who are in medicine. That can be key to just kind of have someone be there with you and just answer questions throughout. So for sure.
All right, Faith. Any words on mentorship?
I think she stepped out for a hot second.
She did mention that. Okay, good. So appreciate you guys for that. Mentorship is super important. It seemed like you guys had a pretty you guys had mentorship all throughout that helped out. So another thing we like to do on this match series is talk about various highs and lows. We know that there were so many, I'm sure, of each along your journey. So would any of y'all care to talk about any of your highs, lows, what they were and how you overcame them?
I'm sitting here nodding and trying to breathe deeply, practice my breathing because I was in medical school for a very long time. I had a lot of hiccups, especially in the preclinical years. And just the battle that is 30-year in and of itself, where it's trying you mentally and physically. It's tough. Like, this journey is super hard, and it's even harder when you don't have like a family member or like that insight into and those resources. But with every struggle, there is triumph. And especially going into like match, because this process, like, you do your best, you apply to a bunch of different programs, you interview, and you're like, okay, I hope this works out. I've been told it'll work out. I've been told that like everything will be okay. But having that attitude of like, wherever I am planted, I will bloom, and kind of trying to maintain positivity and maintain support networks like that ultimately makes the highs even better, because you're sharing it with stakeholders and people that believed in you. But there are, for sure, at least with me, there were some lows, and I just kept pushing. You just got to keep swimming and hope that it'll all work out. That this calling to serve and to be a physician, this desire that's placed in your heart. I'm very religious. That you'll be qualified, that you will be equipped to carry that out. So keep faith and keep trucking, and try to keep positivity in your immediate circle and not get bogged down by those lows, because those valleys are rough.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, some lows definitely, just because we were dealing with two pandemics at the same time. And personally, it hit me. I had lost my grandfather and my uncles a week apart. It's in New York when the pandemic was at a high. And then we were only able to bury them literally the week before everything with George Floyd and like Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor just came out. So it was just like you're going from like one tragedy to the next. And I am pretty sure every fourth year at that time was just like, oh my God, like, it's just hard being, in this situation. And then we have to somewhat act normal and then be able to apply and then do everything virtually. And that was, it was a low, especially if you hadn't done your step two. I kept delaying it because I was just going through way too much. And I was like, I don't want to take this test. I actually did not take my step two until the first week in January. And people are probably like, what? It's the truth. I did not take it. I actually, and we'll probably go into it more when we're talking about interviews and stuff like that. That did not affect my ability to interview and where I got my interviews at as I thought it would. But I think it also allowed me to, going to the question beforehand about mentoring, allowed me to really lean on my mentors and really ask the hard questions. Even though they have never done virtual interviews, they have never been through what I've been through, they still been through the pathway of trying to match, trying to feel the comfortability of a program and the personality of it. And I really leaned on them heavily because I couldn't physically go places. I mean, well, good thing about the pandemic is like, because we couldn't go anywhere, we saved a lot of money, which is great. The bad thing is like, we are probably going in blind to a lot of the places because for some of us, we have never stepped foot in these places. So I think there's some good and bad with that. And I know going forward, a lot of the peds residency are trying to do a hybrid model in which you would probably interview virtually and then do a second look in person to really get the feel for the program. But I think us being like the test dummies unwillingly for this has really kind of put us in a better position with dealing with things being virtual from now on in life, which is probably going to be the norm. So,
Well said. Well said. Anything, David?
Yeah, I think Faith and Chica both said it perfectly. And I just wanted to say, like, I think a lot of times within medical school, there's this culture that if you have a failure or if you didn't go the straight path, that there's this anxiety that comes with it, and there's this like constant comparison between you and your classmates. And to whoever's watching, third year, fourth year, first year, pre med, that's normal. Everybody has some type of setback, and the more you kind of realize that, I guess, at least for me, the more you kind of realize like, okay, that's fine. You're gonna make it through. It's fine. Applying to residency, however, I will say be honest and upfront about it. I got mixed reviews, and this was probably like one of my hardest decisions as to, do you put something like a failed class or anything like that in your personal statement? Is this something that you should kind of be upfront with, or do you kind of say they're going to see it anyway on my application? I don't have to put that in my personal statement. And I went ahead and put it on my personal statement. And I think kind of being upfront with whatever setback you have, whatever challenge you overcome, and talk more. You don't have to stress it, maybe put in a sentence or two, but talk more so about what you learned from it, how you gained from it, how it made you a better man, a woman, a better medical student, and how that's going to enrich you as a physician. I think talking about that, that came up in a lot of interviews, and just the way you can talk about it moving forward and how you've grown from it, that's going to make you look much better than someone who's never fell or had a setback. So it's okay to fail. It's okay to have a misstep. Just focus on that comeback, and I think you'll be fine.
Awesome. Y'all dropping gems already. I love it. Great. So kind of going along here, we know one big part about the whole medical journey is testing, right? We've already alluded to a little bit here. We've got all the steps, and even in residency, there's more steps, and there's all these other exams. But starting back at step 1, step 2 for y'all, what were your experiences with them? How did you prepare? And do you have any advice for anybody watching?
I can start. For me, taking just the steps in general, I have a lot of testing anxiety. And I never had testing anxiety until I got to medical school. So that I think says more about medical school than myself. I used to love tests, and then I got to medical school. I was like, oh Lord, I don't love this anymore. But I learned to figure out who I am as a person. I learned myself and my learning style, and it took time. I had to kind of sit with myself and feel comfortable, like, okay, I'm not, I don't feel like I'm the smartest person going in, but that doesn't mean that I can't pass the test. A lot of the times with the steps, it's really mind over matter. And I had really good mentors and friends who were just like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you kind of just have to prepare yourself mentally with test taking strategies, figuring out what type of learner you are, but also not comparing yourself to somebody else. And also, it's just a number. And if you're going into pediatrics does not care about that number. And that's just real. They just care, did you pass it the first time? And they're like, okay, you passed it the first time, great. This is no longer a conversation. I had programs that blinded my scores, both my step 1 and step 2, because they looked at my application first and they didn't really care about the number. So, and these were top programs, top 10 programs that did that. So don't worry if you have passed the first time. And even if you did not pass the first time, I have a friend who did family medicine. She did not pass the first time. Next time she got around a 230, 240, and she got into her number 1 program. So don't worry about it. I mean, just be focused. Remember, it's mind over matter, and it is a marathon, not a sprint. So.
That's facts. Chica or David?
Oops, yeah. So especially since step 1 is moving to pass fail, I co-sign all of what Faith says. I would say to make use of your free resources at your institution first. I had a really hard time with step one. It took me a very long time to sit for the exam. I studied for about 2 years. I ended up working through UWorld, which is one of the like gold standard resources, about 2 to 3 times over. And I just was having a hard time just um, getting the concepts to connect in such a way that I could demonstrate mastery as I was doing these questions. So like even near the end when the knowledge, the content was there, making sure that I picked the right answer consistently was lacking. And so then it became test taking technique. Shameless plug though, because I sort of exhausted my resources at my home institution. I ended up doing a step one boot camp. There's a lot of them out there. The one that I attended offered a scholarship for which people can apply for. Honestly, can't speak highly enough for Dr. Francis at the PASS program, but that's also an option um, as well. And then I don't know, like board exams are going to be something that as a physician, you're going to be dealing with for your entire career in some way, shape, or form. So the regardless of your like actual score, the sooner you can figure out like what works and what doesn't work as far as board prep, the better you are, because this isn't going away. Like you're always going to be having to take a test to maintain your credentials.
I was gonna say, Chica, if you can just like shout out like that, like the just break down the resource, just so for others that maybe going through the same thing.
Yeah. So it's the PASS program. It's based in Champaign, Illinois. Honestly, I don't know that Dr. Francis has been doing it a while. He's med peds trained. And what I love most about the program, especially, is so in the preclinical years, you get a lot of didactics, and sometimes it's just like a bunch of biochem, a bunch of biostat, and it's a little divorced from like the clinical applications of it. And that's not the way that Dr. Francis teaches. He shows you how biochem is going to manifest itself in like a patient presentation. He ties it all together. It's super comprehensive. And then there is like one-on-one engagement with tutors and large group and small group sessions. And I think also like the discipline of like going off to Champaign for several weeks, waking it up early, working Monday through however. I struggle too with like discipline during step one setting as well. So like having that kind of stick to make sure that I am like on task. This is our schedule. This is what we're working on was super helpful as well. But it's the PASS program and it's in Champaign. So yeah, if you are interested, I will put my information somewhere in here and you guys can hit me up and I can link you as well. But Dr. Francis is amazing. The PASS program is amazing. And I super appreciated his approach to teaching that preclinical information.
Awesome. I actually have heard of the program. I have a friend who did it, co-signs it highly, just as you did. So props to the program. Any comments, David?
Yes. I think what Faith and Chica said is perfect. I think when you're applying and when you're studying for step one and step two, at least for me, a lot of times you kind of want to look to people and just say like, okay, what did you do or what should I do? And that's beneficial in a sense where you can kind of, take information from a lot of people and say like, okay, well, majority of them said UWorld, so I might as well include UWorld, or majority said Ankidex or online med ed or this and that. Only one person said this one random resource, so I might not want to do that. But I think it's also important to try to learn how you learn best. So for some people, they can just look at PowerPoint slides and just get information that way. I can't. I have to do practice questions, and I have to do practice questions twice over and 3 times over for me to master it. So learn what works best for you individually. And then on top of that, I think someone mentioned earlier about like accountability and time management. So create a calendar, create a designated space where this is my study space, or like during this time, I leave my phone in a different room. I don't, even whoever's in my apartment can't open my door and say like, this is my time to strictly study. So create accountability patterns and habits and just figure out what works best for you. But if I had to just give you like a one word answer or something like that, definitely do UWorld.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And the accountability aspect is huge too. Along, just like Chica, I had some kind of accountability / focus issues, especially with step one. But here we are, we made it. All right, good. So, all right, so exactly. So the field of peds, I'm outnumbered here. All of y'all are in some aspect of peds, including my co-host. I'm sure you all think it's an amazing field. How'd you all get any exposure? True. Hey, there's some radiology in peds.
Or you can do pediatric radiology. I was just going to suggest you can join the squad.
Right.
There's always
very true.
time.
Very true. So, Chica, I think you're muted.
I just said it's never too late. That's what I was now.
True. All right. So, kind of moving forward here. Like I said, field of peds. How'd you all get exposure during medical school? How'd you kind of do things to boost your interest or to even kind of confirm your interest? And any tips you have to current medical students or pre-meds about getting exposure to the field?
I think it's a little bit more difficult in this day and age to replicate what I did because of the pandemic and the opportunities to shadow, but taking advantage of your network and even the professors that come in and teach in the preclinical years. As far as third year is concerned, if you enjoy your time on a particular service, just following up with like the preceptor, hey, can I come in and just spend like more time with you? My institution had interest groups that within them, they coordinated like shadowing opportunities as well, but I didn't even limit myself to that. Like as professors came in, I was like, hey, I shoot them an email. Can I spend like half a day with you? Just getting to know like more what you do. I did not come into medical school interested in just peds. There were other things. And for me, like third year, especially really solidified, like, this is what I want to do. This is what I love. This is where my passion is. But yeah, the opportunities in the preclinical years and the interest groups at my home institution is what allowed for me to get like a firsthand perspective of like what a pediatrician actually does. And even within the different subspecialties, like what does an ID pediatrician look like? What does room look like on peds? Networking.
No, I agree. I second that, Chica. I definitely think that helps. For me, I went to medical school because I knew I wanted to work with kids. It was more of me trying to figure out if pediatrics was definitely going to be it or I was going to choose something else. But I was like, I like kids more than I like adults. And I knew like from there that it's just where I was going to be. For me, what I did during my time is I did a lot of mentoring. I mentored for about 4 years. I started off with my kids were in 8th grade and now they're entering into their senior year of high school. So I've been their mentors on Saturdays through the Health Career Opportunities Program or the HCAP program, which is a federally run pipeline program. So you can find that wherever you are across the country. They have different names, but literally they get funding from the government for these pipeline programs. And I was in the pipeline program myself since I was 16. So to be able to go back now as a mentor and like really inspire kids is what made me know that, pediatrics is for me. I also took advantage of the time between my first and second year. That summer, I decided to do a program down in Richmond, Virginia called Jack's Scholars Program. At the time, I was interested in neonatology because I thought little babies were cool. So I did a little research down there for about 8 weeks on synergist administration in their hospitals and whether it was effective and whether it was reaching individuals who were minorities well and they had access to insurance. And that was something that also sparked my interest in health policy, which I can talk about, once we get to other aspects of the conversation. So.
Yeah, similar to Faith, I worked with kids before going into medical school. I did Teach for America, graduating from UNC, and I taught 9th grade. So I love that age group. I love just working with kids in general. And I knew I wanted to go into medicine and be a pediatrician. But if you don't have that kind of experience, it's perfectly fine. I would say if you go into your pediatric clinical rotation and just be like honest and forthcoming with your attending and just say like, hey, I'm really interested in peds, or I think I might be interested in peds. What other experiences can you expose me to during this 6 weeks or during this time that I'm with you? And a lot of times no offense to Nelson, but I think pediatricians are the best doctors and they're usually the nicest and happiest doctors. So they'll usually be receptive to that and they'll be like, okay, yeah, like what do you want to get into? Or like let's come, work on this project on the side or something of that sort. So um, don't be shy, reach out. And a lot of times pediatricians will be receptive to that. And then you can get that kind of experience there. And then when it comes to your electives during your 4th year, try to get rotations that are pediatric rotations, a NICU rotation, maybe a PICU, maybe a HEMONC, something of that sort that can give you access to other facets of pediatrics.
Don't worry, David. No offense taken. I know y'all tend to be the most cheerful and happiest folks in the field, so don't worry about that. All right. Thank you all for that. So moving on, let's talk about the application process. Of course, again, with COVID, it was much, much different this year, kind of threw a lot of us for a loop. Tell us about your application process, everything from how you managed away rotations or the lack thereof, to your personal statement, to the actual application itself and interviews. Just walk us through, tell us how you did it, any advice you have, any ups and downs with that, and how you came through it.
I'm not gonna lie, even in hindsight, I still am very confused by the match and errors. But as far as the actual like personal statement, that had been something that I had kind of been working on from like, well, definitely during 3rd year, but like when I got to medical school, like I knew that I want a application that is reflective of like my passion or what I want to do. So I sought out like to keep track, especially during 3rd year, like what I was experiencing, how I was feeling, what brought me joy, what were my most meaningful experiences, and what populations that took place in. Um, and that way I could be able to articulate that in writing. I think like the general format is like a personal story and talk about like why you're interested in the field, and then like what you want to do. So I wanted to make sure that like whatever I was conveying it's impactful to me. I want to make sure that the reader got that as well. I applied to a lot of institutions. It was an awkward process. I will say that from what I've heard this year, it'll likely be remote again, and especially because of last year, a lot of institutions have made sure that they have a presence on social media. I cannot tell you how many like meet and greets I went to, but they were helpful in getting like vibes on the program and the program's mission. So I'd say definitely like take advantage of that, take advantage of the money that's saved from not having to go to these interviews in person, and take advantage of the fact that they are open to communicate electronically. And it's okay to reach out to program directors and residents and program coordinators to get more insight about not only like the program, but also like any upcoming activities. Really work that network, and I think it'll work out in your favor.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Like Chica said, the whole application process is just something ERAS every year, I think is just a mess. From what I've heard in the past and what we've experienced, it was crazy. For myself, and I think it was honestly the advice I got from my school that made me feel very uncomfortable. When they looked at my step score, they were like, "Oh, you should not be applying to high level programs." That's the myth. Always apply to your dream program. And so I was just like, oh man, I may not get into anywhere. So I'm just going to apply everywhere and we're just going to pay that money and it is what it is. So at the end of the day, I applied to about 52 programs, but I got interviews at about 19 did 15 and ranked 11. So that's just letting you guys know what I did with that. Obviously, don't be like me and do 52, but I was nervous. And I, at that time, was not getting good advice. And I realized, honestly, I'm kind of glad at the same time I applied to 52, because I applied to top programs thinking like, oh, they're just going to like throw my application aside. And those are the ones that actually wanted to interview me versus the ones that were middle tier or low tier didn't even respond back to me. So I thought that was pretty interesting based off the advice I was given at the time. And then in terms of away rotations, I was a crazy person and decided to do 3 virtual away rotations. I had I was crazy. I had applied to the SCORE program, which is an amazing program out of Stanford. Definitely, if you have the opportunity to do the SCORE program, do it. I loved it. Even though it was virtual, I still felt like I was there. I think they have an amazing program there. And they don't even care if you don't go to Stanford. They just want you to be successful wherever you go. And that's the one reason why I applied to the SCORE program. I also applied to CHOP. CHOP canceled their program, but they still somewhat interacted with people who had applied to their program because they were really interested in getting a lot of Black and brown people at CHOP, obviously. And then I applied to UNC for their program where you're at, Chica, and they're amazing. I love UNC. KMT is the bomb. So you have an amazing person over the graduate medical education now, because she's not over fees anymore, which makes me sad. But she's amazing. And I love my time at UNC. And then I also applied to UCFS, San Francisco. And I mean, what can you not say about UCFS? They have an amazing program. And out of all the applications I did for away rotations, they're the only ones that specifically say, if you are Black or African American, apply to our program. When I saw that, I was like, oh, y'all talking to me. So they want you. I think it's a big myth. A lot of people say about don't apply to California. That is the hugest myth in the world. Especially for Black and brown students, they want you. They specifically need you. They have applications that say Black. They have applications that say Hispanic. They want you to come to their programs. So don't shy away from applying to California or even Texas. I just did not apply to Texas because I wasn't really interested in Texas, but definitely California. I interviewed all over the Bay Area at every single residency program. So yeah.
So much to say. I agree with Faith. Like, I think I had a similar experience where my school kind of looked at their profile of whatever they make of you and, got some advice that you probably don't want to hear, which is like maybe apply next year or just apply to rural programs or programs that are, brand new programs or things of that sort. And I've always been a hard-headed person, so I just like, I'm just gonna do it regardless. I'm just gonna go for it, and whatever happens, happens. And everything they said was wrong. So I got a lot of interviews, plenty of interviews, and I think that there's a lot of things that go into that. But in terms of applying, my biggest advice would be don't do it solo. Don't try to go into this thinking that I got this. When I first did my personal statement, I sent it out to someone I met on GroupMe, a physician, Dr. Rebecca Fenton, and said like, hey, I'm just reaching out. I know you're probably busy, but can you just look at this and give me any advice if you have any free time? And she was like, yeah, I got you. Sure. Email it to me here. And then, from there, I emailed, like other people. And I think I did that about 3 or 4 times to the point where I got my personal statement to where it is. And that's completely different from my original personal statement. And then I did the same thing with like activities. Like we would just have kind of study sessions with other medical students and say, do you consider stuff? Do you add stuff that's not medically related? Like I used to drive Uber. Should I put that down? Or should I just only put, medically stuff down? But going to it, and I think that's one of the reasons that we have these kind of networks right here is that when we can kind of do it together in a community, we can kind of help each other out so that we're not feeling alone and feeling like, okay, I'll just do this because I think this is right. So with any of your questions, feel free to reach out to, I'm pretty sure any one of us on this panel, and we'll be happy to help with whatever your specific question may be.
Great. Thank you guys. So props again. Faith, tell us a bit more about your virtual away rotations. How long were they? And you said you did 3 of them, correct?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
did I did them almost at the same time, almost simultaneously. Do not be like me. I was doing the most, okay? But one thing I loved about especially the UNC one was basically it was a preparation for residency. So they walked us through a day of like, okay, this is what our residency program is doing. This is what an educational session is like. This is how to get yourself organized as an intern. This is how to understand how to talk to your attending or talk to your senior. This is the materials you need. This is the mindset you should have going in. And I felt like that was so useful, regardless of whether I had chosen UNC or not. The idea of like just becoming a prepared intern was so important to me. And that was the reason why I chose that particular away rotation. With Stanford, I feel like they helped me prepare for my interview process. I was able to have mentors out there that specifically, I mind you, I'm on the East Coast and they were on PST, and they still were willing to meet with me at our different time zones to really prepare me for interview styles. And they had asked some hard questions. I was like, oh my God, like I'm such an introvert. I know I don't act like one right now. I'm an introvert that has extroverted moments. But I was like, oh my God, like, can I do this? And I was glad to be able to practice and get through questions with them. It really helped me feel more confident going into doing virtual interview season, because I realized how much you just have to relax and be calm in pediatrics. They're not going to ask you crazy questions. Mostly, you just need to know your hobbies and your interests. That's really what they care about in pediatrics, to be honest. But having those opportunities to really sit down with people at Stanford, like them getting to know who I am, and also their focus on making sure, like, do you want to be a physician leader? And I never had heard that term. And I was like, oh, wow, thinking about residency in a different way, saying that I'm not just here to learn and try to get a grade. It's like, what type of physician do you want to be at the end of this? And I think that was definitely a different mindset change that I needed through these virtual programs. And then what was the other one? I didn't do CHOP because they didn't offer that. UCFS, also the great idea was just mentoring, being able to talk to the current residents at UCFS who are just so down to earth. They are so amazing. I love that program. As well as being able to talk to the faculty there, and their views on combating systemic racism, white supremacy, really, and just incorporating all of that within the residency program, what type of physicians that they want to create within their residency program. So I felt like all 3 helped me understand what I need for my specific residency program and what I should be looking for when I'm interviewing, and like the phrases and the keywords and those buzzwords you hear, like, okay, like I know this is not the place I need to be at. I'm like, okay, you're talking something that I like. Was important for me. And I think that's why I would recommend anybody doing a weight rotation. Even if you just can do one, do something so that you figure out what program it's like for you. And you can go into interview season feeling confident, like, okay, I know this is not for me, even though I thought it was. Especially if you're going to, like Chika mentioned, everything's going to be virtual again. You definitely want to make sure you know what type of physician you want to be at the program you're going to do residency at.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to take a moment to shout out the internet, because without it during this pandemic times, like you guys have all heard with obviously Zoom, like David, I remember, so actually we all kind of know each other somewhat because of the GroupMe that was started. So like stuff like GroupMe, just social media, obviously I feel like we should do a session on like having a professional social media, especially during this time. The Zoom sessions, I like tuned into some of them where we all kind of like we're just working on our applications. So like, I mean, this is the time to like really get plugged in if you can. Like, I guess this is like my advice to like M3s/M4s now, since we're technically residents. But yeah, I wanted to follow up kind of, we've been talking about the application process. Obviously matches happened. How did you like, I guess, rank your programs? I think that's something that we don't really talk about. And then like, what have you been doing since all of that has happened? So it's like multiple questions, but whatever you want to tag on to, you can answer, and then we'll kind of conclude from there.
I ranked UNC #1 because of my 3rd year experience. Like it was just, at least for me, there's no perfect program. Residency is hard. This is hard. But placing a program at the top that like I know I'll be supported, and I know I'll be supported because they provided me with support already was really important. There's not a lot of variation in curriculum, to be honest. ACGME standardizes everything across PEDS. You're going to get advocacy. It's why I chose PEDS. You're going to do some research. You're going to have, clinical experiences. So there wasn't enough variance in the programs that I applied to and I interviewed at that kind of set them apart as far as ranking on curricula. But yeah, mainly support. Location was also ideal. And that's kind of how I broke down where I was even going to apply. It's like, can I see myself living in this state, in this area? And if the answer is unequivocally no, then I didn't even apply. I did apply broadly, but there were like whole states. And I was like, I can't, I don't do cold. Like, so I just, yeah. The upper Northeast was not my jam. So support, location, and then yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. Since match week, match day, I've just been trying to transition and do onboarding and enjoy the last couple weeks of freedom before it gets really real. And what I love, there was this, it's not really a TED Talk, but this interview that Michelle Obama did where she was talking about the importance of planning our joy. And so we spend a lot of time like planning our work and making sure that we get tasks done, but not maybe as equal zeal into planning our joy. And so realizing like that's super important for residency because it's going to be a grind, especially intern year, to be very intentional about planning my joy. So I got my schedule. I'm hype. I feel legit now. And I'm going to take the vacation days that they gave me and figure out what trips I can take on my very limited resident budget, but still like just plan my joy.
I think for me, so I came into the mindset, like I said, I had applied to 52 programs, so I had to plan this. I was like, girl, this is gonna be a hot mess. Um, but when I heard back from the programs, I was, like I said, I was still very in shock. I actually was very humble from where I got interviews from. From there, I had to like get out of the humbleness. I was like, all right, done being humble. You have to like sit down and really get to know these programs. Are they really legit? And the reason why I ranked Yale was my number one. I did rank it number one. Specifically was the feeling of just being at home. I just felt comfortable. A lot of my peers from UConn had gone to Yale for their pediatric program specifically, and I felt comfortable talking to them and asking the question like, "Okay, why did you choose Yale? Yeah, it's in the same state. It's like an hour away, but why?" And when they have just talked about the support, the mentorship, like when they were saying that when they had research interest, it's not like them searching for the research interest. It was the people finding out their research interest and then contacting them. I thought was very nice to hear. Also my just interactions with my APD, who is he during my interview with him, he was playing guitar, like literally just playing guitar, and we were talking about Black Lives Matter. We were talking about, racial injustice, and this is a white guy who was just playing guitar, and he's a brilliant man. And he's just chill about it. He's like, I want to know more about you. I wanted to know like, what is your interest and how can I make you feel comfortable at this program if you choose here? And that just made me, very comfortable. I think I went in the mindset like after medical school, my mental health is important to me. So wherever I go, that is centered. And I'm pretty sure interview wise, I gave that appearance of like, look, if my mental health is compromised, I'm not going to be happy at your program. And I was very forward with that, as well as my goals. I told them like I'm interested in medical journalism. I'm interested in continuing podcasting, and I want to make sure I'm in an environment that you allow me to do that, and you do not in any way try to hinder that. And for a lot of programs, I had about 2 programs that were very forward with me, or like, we can't really support, your goals. And I was like, well, thank you for being honest. And I chose not to rank those programs. But from the most part, people appreciate my honesty and being there. And when I chose Yale, specifically, I'll be done with after this rant. My mentor, she actually was the first Black female chief at Yale. And she was the chief for the current program director of Yale Pediatrics. And the way that she told me she influenced her to understand the importance of making sure minorities have leadership positions, it really did show within the interview. It was one thing, as she mentioned, she's like, wanting to push one of the current Black residents to be chief. She's saying, I already talked to her, after her first intern year, I want you to be chief. And for a white program director to focus so heavily on raising and bringing leadership skills to her Black residents, I knew that's the program that I needed to be in. And it obviously, it worked because I'm one of 9, and I thought I'd be like the only one, which is very unheard of in pediatrics to have 9 Black women together, which is really awesome and amazing. We have to work on the Black men, but Black women, we're doing pretty good. So.
That's awesome. I think my answer is kind of twofold because I can talk about what went into my rank list, but then I also couples matched. So that's like a kind of a separate category, but kind of in the same. But I'll just talk about the first part. So every place I interviewed at, I would kind of like make an Excel spreadsheet, and I would look at everything from like housing and this and that. But in all, it came down to like 3 things for me. It was leadership, diversity, and location. So like for leadership, like are there opportunities for me to gain leadership? I think someone just mentioned earlier, like I think you were just mentioning Get Faith, like how, they were trying to push that one um, Black resident to become chief. And I think that's something that I'm looking forward to. Will I be supported in that aspect? And you can just ask those questions directly and just straightforward in your interviews, and just kind of see how they answer. And then that can kind of give you a sense of what you might get yourself into with that program. Diversity for me, I was looking at on 3 levels, like is the director or the leadership, is there diversity in that level? Is there diversity within the residents? And is the patient population that I'm serving, are they diverse? Do they look like me? And if that did, or if they met, at least 2 or 3 of the criteria, that would go high on my rank list. And then location. I'm a city boy. I'm from the Northeast. I like being in urban areas. So that was huge for me. So I think kind of finding the combination of all 3 led me to Rutgers, and just kind of helped me narrow down my list. And then if anyone's interested in couples matching, I can just talk a little bit about that, or you can just reach out to me individually. But for couples matching, the way that works is that I can make my rank list, like let's say 1 through 5, and then my partner can make her rank list like 1 through 5. But if I match at my number 1 and she doesn't match at that number 1, and it's kind of tethered, if that doesn't work out, then they'll automatically move us to the second one. And let's say like her second one really likes her, but my second one doesn't like me, then we'll go down to the third one. So they both kind of have to match. And that's kind of the difficulties with couples matching. But it worked out for us. And again, if anyone's in that predicament, because we were looking for couples matched mentors, people who couples matched in the past, and that's kind of really hard to find, especially Black couples match, residents or attendings or fellows. So if anyone's interested in that, feel free to reach out to me here asking a question or just offline.
Great. Thank you so much. And wow, Faith, if someone interviewing me had a guitar, that would do wonders for any kind of anxiety. I would be chill right away. I'd be like, oh, cool. Let me kick back a little more, That is amazing. But yeah, thank you all for all the introspective feedback so far, all the gems. I want to kind of end things with asking you all if there are any last piece of advice, any things you want to say to med students, those in the pre-med track, any things that would have helped and you would have benefited from in their position. So essentially, yeah, any advice you have, let us know. Yeah, anybody can go first.
I'll start. So 2 things. One, trust the process. So especially when it comes to board prep and you're in the thick of it and you're like, I don't know if this is working. There have been countless generations of students that came before you. They got through it. You will get through it. You will be successful. Just trust the process. There was another one. I can't remember, but yeah, trust the process.
You're good. We can come back to you right after.
Um, for me, I agree with Chica. Trust the process. It's a crazy process and it's gonna look like you don't know what you're doing. But just know that, if you have friends who graduated and if you have mentors who graduated, you will get through it. Sometimes when you're like the only black or brown person in your school or going into a certain specialty, you are like, oh Lord, this is a hot mess. But don't worry, you will get there. I had a friend a couple years back who matched at Brown neurosurgery. He was the only black person doing it, and he did it flawlessly. So, I mean, when I saw that, I knew I can do anything. Um, also make sure you start thinking about after the match process because we focus. I think one mistake I feel like in medical school in general, we focus so much on just you matching and not realizing there are like 3 or 4 months that you have to get your whole life together and figure it out. You have to start literally grow up and be an adult. You have to figure out whether you want to buy a house, get an apartment. Do you want a roommate? How your credit score looking, things like that. No, it's the truth. And I mean, for me, one thing that I can say that I'm proud of, that for what I've done is I made sure I listened to what other people were doing, when it came to should I buy a house right now? Should I buy an apartment? Things like that. I'm Connecticut native, so I felt comfortable buying a house here. And I did buy a house and I used physician loans. If you guys do not know what those are, those things are real, they are amazing, and I don't think I put more than 5,000 down for my house. And I'm using it as a way to also bring in a second way of revenue for myself. So I don't mind like having roommates again because I'm like, look, I'm gonna be at the hospital 90% of the time anyways. But while I'm at the hospital, I have people who are living here who are paying me to live here. And that's another way you can pay off your student loans, as well as making sure that, now you have property, which is great in the long run. So those are things that you just have to start thinking about long term, wherever you go. You don't have to buy a house. I'm just giving an example. But just thinking of like, how are you going to pay off your student loans? How is it going to work if you have a partner not in medicine or in medicine? Like you said, with those vacation times they give you, making sure that you plan out those vacations with your partner if you have one, like saying like, okay, you have to be off when I am off, like just because you want to make sure that you guys are in sync. And that goes with couple matching too, as you mentioned, David. And that's finding the right residency program that will allow the chiefs of whatever the specialties you're in to really talk with one another to make sure that you guys are off at the same time. That is so important. A lot of people overlook. But otherwise, yeah, I think just making sure you understand there's a life after match, even though it makes it feel like everything is to the match, there is life after match and just being prepared for that.
Yeah, I agree completely with Faith and Chica. Um, my biggest advice would be to find a mentor. Find, especially if you're interested in pediatrics, I can't tell you enough how Next Gen Peds really helped me and a lot of people here as well. So you can find us at Next Gen Peds or at Next Gen Peds on any account, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. But find someone out there who's going to help you out throughout the process. Don't go about this alone. Don't try to just wing it. You can hurt yourself that way and you can end up at a place where you may not be as happy as you would have been if you went somewhere else. And then just like Faith said, finances, like start to think about that stuff because a lot of us graduate with a lot of money in debt, with loans. So start to talk to your parents, talk to financial advisors, and just see like how you can best plan out your residency. You do get paid, but it isn't that much. And if you can kind of continue maintaining that student low cost living status, then you can kind of help yourself out for years in the long run. So think about stuff like that. And then also during your time off, I was fortunate enough to graduate in February. My graduation ceremony was this past weekend, but we were officially done with rotations in February. So enjoy yourself. You're never going to have this much time off in the foreseeable future. So travel, spend time with family, do what you normally do. Do what makes you happy. I think Chica mentioned earlier, like finding joy, spending time doing that. So yeah, use this time selfishly and enjoy yourself and have fun in the process.
Awesome. Again, thank you all so much. One very final thing. Do you all have anything you want to pub? I heard a podcast earlier, any Instagrams, YouTubes, anything at all that you want to publicize here?
I think I mentioned it a couple times, but Next Gen Peds, we're an organization that's helped out mostly everyone here, and a lot of young UIM in medicine, specifically going towards pediatrics. And we can pair you with mentors. And even if you're interested in a different subspecialty, we can probably find someone, or we know someone who we can match you with. So you can find us at Next Gen Peds, one word, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. And then you can also just build a community with other like-minded UIM who are going through this process. We do study halls, we do different events where we can kind of just vent and talk about what this process is like for people like us. So that would be my biggest plug, Next Gen Peds.
I'm going to pub White Coat Black Doctors. They have a foundation and a scholarship set up for fourth-year medical students if you're looking for some extra funding. Yes, you get to save money by going through this process remotely, but getting a little bit more money back is also helpful. So White Coat Black Doctors. And then they also have opportunities for like pre-med students and high school students to work with their foundation as well, and outreach. So check out the website. It's a great foundation started by UNC med students.
Yeah, awesome. I actually support both of those organizations. I actually have a hoodie that says Black Doctors White Coat, or White Coat Black Doctors, and I was a part of Next Gen Peds, and I cannot rave anymore about it. It's an amazing program. So if you're doing pediatrics and you're Black or brown, definitely join that group. It's going to be amazing, and I'm pretty sure in a couple years, when the data comes in, it's going to be the reason why a lot of Black and brown people got into pediatrics, to be honest. And just to mention some things that I do a lot of health policy. I think that's one thing that as Black and brown students, we do not get involved in enough. So I have a podcast called Coloring Health Policy that talks about how health policy impacts minority communities. And I also am heavily involved in health policy work through the AMA. One policy that I have coming up, which I'm super excited about, is talking about natural hair discrimination and cultural headwear in medicine and medical professionalism. This is the first time the AMA is hearing this policy, and hopefully it will be passed, and they'll be the first professional organization in the country to support combating natural hair discrimination. So if you guys are AMA members, or if you know people who are AMA members, tell them to please support this resolution when it comes to the House of Delegates, as well as I have the same resolution coming through the American Academy of Pediatrics in August. So hopefully they will speak up for Black and brown children when it comes to natural hair discrimination. As you guys probably have seen in the news, with a lot of Black and brown children are just having so many issues when it comes to sports, school, with natural hair discrimination and cultural headwear in general. So those are things that I care about, and just want to let you guys know what's going on.
Awesome. Again, wow. Thank you so much. Y'all are amazing. It's been an amazing discussion. I loved hearing all about your journey and all the gems you dropped. So I'm sure everyone else enjoyed it too. With that being said, that's pretty much it. Once again, thank you guys. Good luck in your future endeavors as you start as MDs in the hospital soon. Just keep it up. Like we said earlier, it's there are going to be some trials and tribulations, but you are more than capable of overcoming them. Teach you anything from your end?
Nothing else. Just want to say thank you guys. Like, it's always awesome doing these sessions because first of all, you just hear about the amazing things that people are doing, and then you're also just like inspired. I'm like, dang, like I wish I could be like her when I grow up, or him when I grow up. But thank you guys so much again for joining this session. And yeah, be sure to the audience, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Sound like a YouTuber. And we'll probably have some more sessions coming up, but see you guys soon.
Thank you guys again. Bye-bye.